Hello, happy Saturday. It's Saturday where I am, but happy whatever day of the week it is, wherever you are. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So what I thought I'd do now is I thought I'd show you some of the expanding capabilities that you've got, some of the best toolings out there to also augment it with your own capabilities to take things to the next level. So what's going to differentiate people in this battle for generative AI is initially the tooling getting to a sufficient level that it's useful enough to be able to do that. And it's starting to get there. So I've talked long and hard about, for example, IDE extensions for AI. I use them occasionally in my day-to-day work. Generally, I don't use a lot of AI, and that's depending on the way you're working and who you're working for. But I do certainly sort of investigate the potential of generative AI, and I have been doing for a good couple of years now. So you've seen on my LinkedIn, well ahead of time, I've predicted most of the capabilities that have been coming along the pipeline. So a couple of years ago, I wrote my own AI CLI because I knew that the potential was going to be more about CLIs and IDEs, although IDEs do have their use in terms of sort of having a bridge to AI. But I wanted to get myself ready for when the tooling caught up to be able to do things with it. And we've seen the tooling catch up very recently. So Anthropic have had Claude Code CLI for quite a while. And also we've seen recently the Gemini CLI coming out. Now, the thing with CLIs, everyone's seeing development at the moment. CLIs are much, 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 much more than development. And I'm going to show you why they are going forwards. But development is one use case for them. So what we're going to be doing today is initially we're going to be building up towards showing you what you can do by amplifying what you can do with tooling. This is a bit of a battle, right? Everyone's going to have the same capabilities. And it's all about your vision and experience and exceptional humans being able to take that experience, to be able to utilize that to basically leverage this technology to do things. And it's been building to the point where it's getting useful now. So this is where we're going to start seeing a battle of individuals and technologies to sort of survive and thrive in this environment. If you don't leverage these capabilities, if you just dismiss them because it's the way it's always been, the way I've always done it, you're going to have a problem. If you're like me, you're passionate, you love what you're doing, you spent decades working in it, you're still passionate, you spend a lot of time doing it even when you're not at work because you want to keep on top of what's going on. You need to start thinking about how you're going to fit in with the new world. And the new world inevitably will result in the haves and the haves not. And if you are a have not, then you may end up with having very little. So you need to adapt. So if you want to survive, you need to adapt. So what we're going to do today, and we'll start off the initial demonstration we're going to do. I've talked about this before, but Model Context Protocol, so MCP. This is the RESTful API of AI, and I've talked about this before. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be using some readily available tooling. So I'm going with Anthropic's Claude Desktop to start with. So that has a lot of capabilities to do a lot of things. But over the years, I've been writing a lot of agentic systems that do a whole lot of things, capabilities that simply aren't available yet in AI technologies. Do I need to throw them all away? Or do I need to use my brain and think about how I start utilizing them? I'm going to do the latter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here I can use MCP to add capabilities that I've already built to give Claude Desktop superpowers. Looking forwards to how we 10 times how we become creatively productive in the future. So that's what I'm going to do initially. Now, if I've exposed something as MCP, that means it's also available for other things. So what I'm also going to do going forwards is I'm going to start showing you stuff with Claude's CLI, Claude Code CLI, to be able to do things in development in C#. You don't see a lot of that done, actually. You see a lot of stuff done in other technologies. You don't see a lot done in C#. You can do it. There's a little bit more you have to do. So you have to use currently WSL, and there's a little bit more you have to do about how you think about how you consume it. But if I built something in MCP, then I can expose it to the sort of CLI to be able to do things as well. So what we're going to do today, so initially I'm just going to show you some simple, very basic noddy tools that I'll create to be able to show that the tooling works. And I'll just talk you through how you add MCP tooling to Claude Desktop. I'll be using my weapon of choice, which is C#. There are other weapons you can use. It's up to you, whatever you want to use. Use whatever you want to use. So I'll be using that to create an MCP server, behind which I'll take some of the capabilities that I already have, very quickly throw them behind some MCP endpoints, so that I can be able to reconsume them without starting from scratch, because that would be crazy, right? So that's what we're going to do today. So that's the core effort. Now, once I've got these inside an MCP server, now if I go to Claude Code CLI, then, what if I want to use it for that as well? Well, if it's behind an MCP server that supports MCP, I can use it in there as well. So what we're going to do today, so I've shown in the past, over the past couple of years, you'll see me writing agents then go away and do things with databases. So we've seen things talking to a whole raft of databases: SQL Server, Postgres, Elasticsearch, GraphQL. So I have a set of agents which are actually agnostic of databases. So they have a set of connectors so they can adapt to whatever the database is. Now, being able to connect to a database is one thing, but I also have capabilities in there to be able to introspect the database. So to go away and without an agent having to do anything, as on that initial connection, it will go away and model the database schema in a way that the model that is talking to it can be able to use it right out the box without me having to do anything else. Literally just give it a connection string and away it goes. So that's pretty much what we're going to be doing today. So that is the plan. Now, the particular database I'm going to be using, I'm going to be showing you a database which has data from a proxy server. Not any particular proxy server, but Burp proxy, which is pretty much one of the de facto standards in the cybersecurity industry. How did I get that data into that database? Good question. The way I did it was there was nothing that quite did what I needed, so I wrote my own. So you can extend Burp with the Montoya API to be able to do your own things. So if you're able to code in Java, which I do use from time to time, then I've written my own Java extension to be able to do that. How I get that then into the database, I've written a C# API, which basically then persists those in the database for me. So when running Burp, anything that's going through Burp is also going through the API, is also going into the database. Now it's in the database, what do I do with it? Well, what would be really cool is I could give a capability for the AI to be able to access that proxy in real time, right? To be able to do things. So these are things like red team, blue teaming, analyzing your code as you're creating it to be able to do things. Have I got insecure headers, all the rest of it? Is this open to XSS? This can be sort of explored in real time, and we'll be doing some stuff with that. So we'll be using the database at the moment to do that. But what we can also do, and we'll do that in the future, that's not one for today, but what we'll do is we'll actually create a dedicated set of Burp capabilities to not only be able to talk to the proxy, but be able to do things in real time. So be able to rehydrate, Burp requests, play those requests, go and find them in the proxy in real time, see what the emission was, go around again, go and then tamper with the request to just check that something is good so that we know that the code we write is not susceptible to anything particularly obvious. So that's what we'll be doing with that. Going forwards, over sort of past 10 days, we've seen hooks come out for Claude Code CLI. This is incredibly powerful. So this allows you to basically hook into some of the actions that the CLI has, like running before running tooling, after running tooling, on a sort of subquery stop request, which is basically when you're using the CLI, the only way to use it in a positive manner is to use something called planning. So the CLI has a capability to have a plan mode. So the first thing you do before you do anything else, you create a good plan. You tune that plan until it's optimal for what you need to do. You tune it by using your skills and knowledge of how the technologies you're using to make sure that the plan is a good plan. Then you allow the CLI to go away and run away and do things. So this can take 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how complicated it is. During that point, you can basically hook into the CLI using things like notifications to be able to get updates on what it's going. And the CLI from time to time will come back and ask you for permission to do things, and require you to be able to confirm those or set up the permission so it's allowed to do that by default, which is something else you can do with the CLI. So these hooks give tremendous capabilities to not only run the CLI, and I'm going to show you some things which I'm pretty sure you've never seen before, where we're going to use the CLI in a very innovative manner, where we're going to hybrid chain lots of AIs to basically control the CLI. That's one for another day. That's not for today. So the model context protocol in terms of Claude Desktop then. Let's just have a little look at what's available. So out the box, there are a set of SDKs to be able to sort of create your own servers and clients in your technology of choice. Mine C#. You see the stuff there for Java, Python, TypeScript. There are a set of reference servers that are available out the box that you can use to be able to do various things like interacting with your file system, talking to Git, create memories. There's a whole set of what they call archive capabilities now, of which there's some very interesting ones in there, like Puppeteer, and we'll be using that to, in the case of the CLI, to not only allow it to write code, but be able to not only run the tests, not only compile the code, but also be able to go into the UI and navigate it itself, look at what's going on, take screenshots of what's going on, look at the screenshots, is the code performant, react to those issues. So not only will you be getting deving, you'll be getting it testing, and it will do that all pretty much autonomously. And during the period of when it's doing things, you might want to go and do other stuff. So I'll show you things where we can have the CLI talking to your watch or your phone. Then, hey, I need some input. And then we can use things like a web server to see the emission of the CLI. So we're completely somewhere else, we can't see it. I'll show you what you can do then to be able to then do things with it. And I'll show you things using, for example, in the Apple ecosystem, the shortcuts. So we'll be able to actually talk back to the CLI in real time and get it to do things. So you're out and about and you're also doing a long running thing, you're putting the washing on and you want it to carry on, and you don't want to wait 5 minutes so you get back to your PC because time is precious. We'll be doing some stuff with that. Now I'm using one of the new Max plans. These Max plans are actually epic in terms of what they give you, the sort of return. If you're using Claude heavily, then you want to get a Max plan. Simple as that. So you've got the $100 and the $200 plans, which give you ×5 and ×20 what you get with Pro. I'll talk a bit more in depth about some of the sort of limitations of how you use them. But effectively, if you were using the API to do it, which is what you have to do before these existed, your costs in terms of using those, if you were heavily hammering it, you could be talking hundreds or thousands of pounds a month. So if you're very clever about how you use these, you can make a significant cost saving and use one of the best technologies in the field. There are other technologies. I'm not necessarily an Anthropic only fanboy. I use a lot of the provider tools because I need to understand how they work, which is the best, which is best at this, which is best at that. I'll use the best tool for the best job. I'm not a particular fanboy of any technology. So you can see here there's a whole raft of what they call archived capabilities, and you can see there's a whole set of third-party capabilities now for a whole set of toolings that you can just basically plug into Claude Desktop to be able to do things. One of the archive ones, for example, here is a Postgres SQL capability to connect to Postgres SQL. In this demonstration, I've deliberately chosen to use SQL Server because there isn't one there that's available out of the box to show we can do it, but my own agents have capability to connect to any particular database. I have a database agnostic agent that can connect to a whole raft of toolings via connectors. So what I'll do over time is we'll plug in some more complicated versions of this so that we can talk to databases in real time. And not only can we talk to a database in real time, we can talk to multiple databases in real time. This is really powerful also when you're using the CLI. Say you're using microservices. So you've written some code and you're running the code and it goes to another microservice, it goes to another database. You can give the CLI the capability to go away and talk to that database in real time to actually check. I ran it, I used the UI, I made these changes in the UI, I got the expected output from the UI, but did the thing end up in the endpoint as expected in the final destination database? Well, the CLI can actually do that itself without you having to do it. So I'll show you a whole raft of things along with those. So we're using MCP today, and we're going to write an MCP server to basically a couple of noddy tools just to show you how MCP works, and then we'll show you a couple of very simple capabilities. There's a bit more going on behind the scenes, which we'll go into the details, but basically it allows Claude to connect to a SQL Server database. The tooling itself will then go away and provide Claude with all the information on the schema so that Claude can fully understand what's behind that database. And then it has a capability to allow Claude to be able to run queries on that database with no extra setup required. It'll go from nothing. It knows it's got a tool. In a couple of actions, it'll be using the tooling and it'll be doing functional things in terms of writing queries to be able to do things. So that's what we're going to do today. So first of all, what should we look at first? Let's look at the database. So here we've got a database. Now, this is a database that's got data in it, right? This data is got here using Burp. Burp doesn't support out the box the capability to do it. I've written my own extension in Java to be able to talk to a web API, C# I've written to be able to persist it in a database. Now, that's not necessarily great use for me. The purpose of getting it into the database was just to get it in a format that I could get it to AI to be able to do things. Knowing what was coming, you need to prepare, right? You need to prepare. You need to see where you're going to be in 6 months. And I've seen that the CLI was going to be a thing 18 months ago. So I've already been preparing for the CLI. I'm ready for it. I know what I'm going to do with it. I know the capabilities that people are going to introduce. So I'm ready for what the CLI can do. So this was more about planning for allowing AI to connect to the database. So that's what we're going to do. So let's have a look at some code now. Give me a second. So here we go. So what I've done is I've used the Model Context Protocol official NuGet package to give me the capability to to create an MCP server. So using the boilerplate for C#, it's very simple to do. You add the MCP server. I did the Studio Server Transport, which is something that tooling can pick up on. You can think of it like Swagger in terms of there's no Swagger there, but as a way of the AI finding and discovering the tooling. And in here, I've also got my connector, which is the SQL Server connector, to be able to allow it to do things. So I've got my own custom code that I've created that I've molded in a way to give the AI capabilities that it can use. And that is to connect to an introspect schema and to be able to run a query. So I've created a couple of tools. So we've got in class here. We've got some tooling, some noddy tooling to basically an echo tool, and we've also got a string reverse tool just to demonstrate that the tooling's working. And then further on, what we've done is we've created this SQL Server tool where we've got basically a couple of capabilities. So allow Claude to connect to the database and receive information about the schema, and then allow it to run queries. Now, Claude is quite intelligent, so this particular tooling is designed not to run in a Mars fashion, but to run a single request. I made Claude aware that's the mode it runs in, so if it needs to run multiple queries, it will call this tooling iteratively. We could also expose a Mars endpoint if we wanted to. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So that's essentially behind the scenes of that. There's not a lot of code, a few hundred lines of code that actually do the mechanistics of the secret sauce that allow it to do what it needs to do to be able to do the things that I want the model to do. So that's pretty much what we've got here. So in terms of adding this tooling to Claude, give me 1 second to find the right window. In fact, maybe I need to, in fact, let's go to Claude. So what we can do, to basically enable this capability, first of all, I've already enabled it, but you'd need to go and enable the developer tools, so it's available from this menu. Once you've got that, you've got this separate menu now where you've got some things where you basically use an app config file to be able to define what you're going to do. So if I go into the app config file here, basically I've told it it's got a tooling called MCP database, and I've told it where it is. So it's going to the compiled binary of this application, this server application that I've already written. So that is now set up and ready to go. So that is all there ready. And I'm also just going to prepare now, find the connection string ready. So what I'm doing in the background here is I'm copying the connection string to the clipboard, ready for when we do some stuff with databases. So that should be ready to go. So first of all, how do we know the tooling's there? Well, you have this little, we haven't done anything. I haven't set anything up. I've just configured the app config. We go here and we can see the toolings that are available. And you'll notice at the bottom, there's one that says MCP database. That is my MCP server. So behind that, you can define which tools you can use. So we've got the echo tool, the string reverse tool. We've got the connect and introspect. I shortened it a little bit because obviously there's a very limited space here to be able to go and connect to and introspect the database. That allows then Claude to do things with the database. And then we've got a capability to run a SQL Server query. Now, apart from that, I haven't really told Claude anything else. It will be relying on the context of what I'm doing, its understanding of what the schema is, its understanding of the question to be able to go away and do things which enable us to come out with an emission. So first of all, what we can do, we can actually get it to list the tools. So let's do that. So if we get it to list tools, so you can see here that it's reporting what tools it can see. And you can see my 4 tools are listed at the top underneath what I've called database tools. The couple of noddy ones are just whacked in there. I couldn't be bothered to create a dedicated server for those just for the purposes of the demonstration. And it's got some already installed tools that come out the box with Claude. So that is ready to go. So first of all, how do we, let's do something just to check those tools are alive. So give me a second. So let's get it to use the echo tool to echo the phrase hello world. So we'll do that and let's see what happens. So you can see it's making a request, and the way it knows how to make a request, it's making a request via JSON. It knows what the signature of the MCP server method is to be able to provide the information that's relevant to it. So I'm not doing anything here to shift around stuff and build JSON. It knows from what the JSON is, it knows from the description of what the tooling is and the description of what the particular variable is, what it is, so it can then go away and put the relevant information in there. So it knows that I was telling it to use the echo tool to be able to say hello world. And out here we see the response. So you can see here that the response itself, now I wanted to just demonstrate that it's actually said the echo tool returned hello world. It did not. The echo tool actually returned this string, which also had this star from echo tool. So I'm showing you that the response that comes back from the tooling is also going through inference by Claude before it comes out of the emission. It knows that is irrelevant to what I wanted the echo tooling to do. It's figured out that I just want to see hello world. So we've got another tool in there to do a reverse. So let's go away and do that. So give me a second to get that going. So what we'll do is we'll say reverse the phrase hello world. So let's let it go. Off we go. So again, it's built the JSON for us and it's gone away, and you can see that it's got the response JSON that's built up. You can see it's from the tooling, it's got a little bit more in there. Claude is clever enough to infer what it's doing. So now what do we want to do? Well, now we want to talk to a database, right? Oh, what are we going to do? Copy and paste, build a CSV, import, you know what I mean? Import an XLS. No, we're going to let Claude talk to the database. We've built a tool to do that, so we're going to allow it to do that. So how do we do that? So first of all, we're going to tell it to connect to the SQL Server using the connection string on the clipboard. So let me just double check it's still on the clipboard. Now, also, I could actually drop the connection string in here and it will be clever enough to figure out the connection string is in here and it'll be able to use that. But because I've told it it's on the clipboard and I've copied it to the clipboard, it'll go away and get it from the clipboard. So let's go away and run that. So what's happening now, it's made the MCP server call. My code is going away and doing stuff. There's nothing in the request because it's got nothing to send. If there was a connection string, it would have sent it. So here we go. You can see successfully connected to the SQL Server database. It's listed the tables. So we've got some tables there to do with HTTP requests. I've also built into my Java extension capabilities to do stuff with WebSocket traffic, which is not something we're going to look at today. But basically, you've got a session. So every time I start Burp, it creates a new session so that I can just focus on the session I'm working on, but I can keep the historical session information if I want to go back and do things on it. It has a log table, which basically has the response data. Now, I haven't told anything to Claude about it. It's gone away and figured it out using what my introspection endpoint has given it to figure out what the data is. So it's a main log table with request and response data, methods, status codes, and there's a header table with the request and response headers. I haven't told it anything about what that data is. It's used what I've given it behind the MCP tooling to be able to do that. So it's now connected to the database. So how do we know it's connected to the database? Well, let's get it to run a query. So we'll say, show me the most recent request from the database as a response body, give me the headers, the request, and typo there, but we'll leave it, and response and the details of both. Claude can deal with typos. So let's go away and let it see what it can do. So it knows it's got a tool that can allow it to query the database. So it's gone away and built the query. It's gone away and then used the MCP server tooling to ask it to go and run the query. And then we're going to see what comes back in the response. So it's gone away and run multiple queries. So it's one to get the request headers, one to get the response headers, and one to get the complete response. And there we go. So what it's done is it's gone away. It's figured out from the data itself. Well, it knows what HTTP request is. It knows what the topology of the database is. It's not stupid. It's figured out what to do. So you can see here, we've got queries that are coming back with data from, which one is this? This is from the Burp log table, which is basically the full bodies. So it's got the full body here of what's going on. Here it's gone away and got the request headers. Those are request headers. There it's got the response headers. And then what it's done is I didn't need to look at those. It's pivoted it to the context of the question that I'm asking it. And it's actually quite intelligent here because these requests have come from something called the Danville web application. You'll see me use this before. Might have been demonstrating agentic cybersecurity capabilities. So you can see it's already figured out that this is actually using one of their XSS endpoints and some of the issues with that without me actually asking. Now it's in the context, I could go away and talk to it. So I'm not going to do more with this today in terms of using Burp, but if you're clever, you can figure out the kind of things I can do with this. So Claude Desktop can now talk to Claude, can talk to Burp. And also I've got my own toolings where I can I can use the Burp GUI to be able to look at things, and I can basically identify requests of interest. And without me having to actually do anything, I can use other capabilities to just basically use my voice to say, hey, I wanted to look at request 299. Then I can start asking Claude questions, and it will know that I've already said I want to look at request 299, not actually even using Claude Desktop, using all the capabilities to then be able to go away and do sort of queries on that. And the other thing we can then do then, so if we've got something which looks vulnerable to something, there are other capabilities that will build into the Burp extension that can do things that allow it to make requests. So it can go and build a request, it can execute a request and make the HTTP request, get the response. It can go away and look, it knows it's got the proxy server database, and go away in the database, look at what response is. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, it looks like it's not vulnerable to XSS because we've tried all these things. So we can actually get Claude Desktop to autonomously do things. We can also use this in the CLI when we're writing code, because what we can do is, if it knows it's got an MCP tool to do things, as part of the plan, we can tell it to use things like the Puppeteer extension is a great one to be able to go and run the UI, go away and do things. We can then go away and get Claude to go away and examine the database to look at all the data to make sure it completely matches what it put in, because it knows what it put in the UI, because it basically tells the Puppeteer extension to be able to do things. And it can take things to a whole new level of capabilities that you just don't have the time to do today. And also in real time, it can look at all the requests, responses, look for things like insecure headers, things that you might not be looking at day to day. You're busy building your CRUD backend, you're busy building your UI. Well, that's when you're going to be using these kind of toolings to be able to do things. So one last thing here. Let's try one last thing before I knock it on the head. So I'm now told it I want it to build me a burp request that I could use in burp repeater. Now I'm saying burp repeater, but when we go to the burp tooling, what you'll see is it can, if I had a tooling that allows it to do it itself, it can go away, start making requests itself, looking at the response, going away, querying the proxy database as part of a single one-line question. It can go away and do 10 different things, go away and do all those things, spend 30 seconds doing it, come back, analyze everything, look at everything, go into the database, go into the proxy, build the request, send the request, look at the response body from the request. It can do that at the speed of light, far faster than I can do it. And I probably wouldn't have the time to do it if I'm, for example, developing things. I'm busy doing stuff, right? I don't have the time. So let's see what it does with that. So it doesn't need to query the database again, I suspect, because it already knows that it has got the information in the context. So what it's done, it's gone away and built this. Essentially, this is a burp request. So I have toolings available, agentic toolings that can take. Now, the reason I use this format is because I want to use the same format as burp. So I can take things out of burp, tamper with them, send them directly back in repeater in burp. But also what this can do, I have a capability where it can transform this essentially burp request to things that can be sent via a HTTP client, for example. So if you think about what I could do now is I could wrap this capability to talk to the database inside another set of MCP server tooling that can do things directly with burp. So not only can it talk to the proxy, examine the proxy, it can go away and build requests, do iterative work just inside Claude Desktop, be able to do things that it can do without actually me going into that tooling. I like the burp UI, so I'll generally run 3 screens. I'll have that on another screen. I may have this on another screen. I'll have something else on another screen. So I can cast my eye over that as well. While burp is doing stuff, I can see what it's doing. I can keep an eye on it. So that's really just a demonstration of what you can do with the power of MCP. So if you really want to differentiate yourself in the near future, you need to understand how this tooling works. You need to understand how to leverage this tooling. There's going to be a lot of battle for people there's going to be some detrimental effects on jobs potentially by organizations that aren't really using their brains, saying, actually, it's not about getting rid of people. It's about using the people we've got to do more things better. So do more things better. That's really, if you're clever about how you leverage this technology, that's what it's all about. But depending on the organization you're in, you may be in a battle to survive. So you need to make sure you're ready for what's coming. Generative AI, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. You can look at the whole raft of content I've built. I've been building ready for the point where generative AI is ready to take the next step. It is now ready to take the next step. So you as a developer, if you're passionate about working as a developer, you need to up your game a little bit. You need to do a bit of grind. You need to understand how this technology works. It's simply not going to be sufficient to be able to sit on the sidelines and think, generative AI is rubbish. Well, how you use it may be rubbish. You need to use your brain to leverage what it can do. And there's a lot that it needs an experienced, exceptional humans to be able to do, to be able to take it to the next level. It can't do it on its own. It needs humans to be able to do that. And going forwards, as it becomes more powerful, you need to be more creative, more efficient in how you think about, okay, what can I do next? How can I take this further forward to be able to survive in this new world? If it was a Netflix docudrama, it would be Code to Survive. I'm not sure it'll get as many viewers as Drive to Survive, which is a great show, love it, but that is what it is. So hopefully you've got a bit of an idea what we're doing. I'm going to be taking this whole set forwards. This is just the start, the kind of things that I'm preparing for to survive in a career that I love, that I'm passionate about, to make sure that I can leverage this technology when required. And day to day, I don't leverage generative AI or not, but I know it's coming. And I know it's no good for me to wait 2 years to catch up, to then I'll be too far behind other people. I need to be ready. I need to be on my game. So when new technology comes out, C# comes out, I'm on it. I started out writing code in things like Fortran, and then, Delphi came out, which is Turbo Pascal. I'm going to go to Pascal. C# came out. I'm going to C#. JavaScript frameworks coming out. I'm going to start working in JavaScript frameworks because I want to stay in this career because I enjoy it. But I've had to grind. You're not going to get away in the future with not grinding. So it's time to up your game if you want to stay in this space. And if you do want to stay in this space, I wouldn't worry too much about what's going to happen. You just need to make sure you differentiate yourself. You need to be visible. So you need to be visible in how you make yourself available to people to be able to know you exist. to be able to know you exist in a format they can use you, to be able to, for example, work in a place that you want to work. You're going to have to put a bit of grind in, and you've got time. So I would suggest that you maybe start thinking about that now, or at least getting your head around how you could potentially leverage these in your own way. And if you choose not to, you don't need them, that's fine. You don't need to use it. And maybe generative AI is rubbish and nothing's going to happen, and you'll carry on doing what you're doing now in 5 years' time. But I know VB6 developers 20 years ago that were saying that. Most of them aren't developers anymore. So I just sort of give you the heads up that you need to start thinking ahead. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of what you can do with MCP. And I'll stop talking now and go and do something more useful with my time, as they used to say, why don't you? If you don't consider this useful, I find it useful. But anyway, so that'll give you a bit of an idea how to use this technology. With the CLI, I'll go and do some very interesting things with that. I'll basically show you something that you don't really see. Not many people are using it in the C# world, and you can definitely use it in that world. Not only to be able to use it in its default format, but to be able to times 10 it, put it on steroids to do some insane things. I'm going to show you some crazy things that you'll be able to do with that technology if you choose to leverage your own capabilities to take it to the next level. So anyway, that's all really got for you today. So I'm going to wish you a happy rest of whatever day of the week it is, wherever you are. It's Saturday here. So I'm going to chill, but have a great day. Look after yourself. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.